cough. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala mursalin. Allahumma salli ala sayidina Muhammad Fatih lima khuliq wal khatim lima sabaq nasrul haq bihaq wal hadi ila siratal mustaqim wa ala alihi haqdaril azim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh everyone. Idul Fitri Mubarak once again. Selamat Hari Raya. Maaf zahir batin to everyone. Alhamdulillah, welcome to the new episode in Saud Ilahi after Ramadan. You know, in Ramadan, we had conversation in Ramadan. After Ramadan, now we are in Shawwal, Alhamdulillah. We have this program, we call it Real Conversation. So it's something that we share with people, you know, from different walks of life about certain issues pertaining to life. And tonight, we're going to talk about marriage. Marriage and love, and yeah, that does affect us in our daily life, and it's going to be something interesting. And I felt that inshallah we're going to learn from all these people who on board today. Alhamdulillah, thanks to all of them. I would like to introduce them first. Macam ring announcement gitu. Okay, we have Sister Zizi, mashallah, or Siti Nazifa. And then we have Ubaidur Rahman, Brother Ubaidur Rahman, who we also known as Ubay, correct? Ubay, yeah. And then we have Brother Hafiz, a diehard Spurs fan, and also amazing man. I know him many years ago, who had taught a lot of many converts how to solat and all that. MashaAllah, may Allah bless him. And then our special guest from Australia, we have from Melbourne, MashaAllah, Brother Ashari, who is a Singaporean, but I've been living in Melbourne for how many years? I so forgot.
I've lost track. Probably about 17 or 18 years. Yeah.
Wow. And in our Ramadan edition, our program, he was also the first guest to share about his Ramadan experience when he first became a Muslim. And last not least, my blessed wife, Ainun Harun here. So we're going to talk about marriage and love and anything to do with love and marriage. So it goes around and round, right? So I think I want to start with Ashari, because everybody's so intense. So I start with you, Ashari. So calm and maybe you already been married for many years. And I remember the last podcast we had, right? Towards the end, you talk about marriage. I don't know whether you remember that, how you find your
Yeah.
wife, how you met your wife. So would you like to share with us first before we go into deeper in this conversation, in this subject? What's your definition of marriage and how did you finally got to marry your wife? You know, you were studying, right, over there?
Yeah. So what happened was, look, I came to Australia with intention to study, not to marry. But you know, Allah's got bigger plans for everyone. So you might want to do one thing and then something else happens. So what ended up happening was I didn't graduate. Well, I was going to do a degree, but I sort of stopped halfway. And instead of graduating for the full degree, I sort of finished halfway. And there was another graduation called a marriage. So that's what happened. So basically, when I first came to Australia to study, I was sort of feeling very out of place. Like, you know, you get so used to living your like 19, 20 years in Singapore, and then suddenly you move to a different country, everything is just like starting afresh, getting to know people, getting to understand a new way of living, a new culture. I mean, Singapore and Australia are you know, globalized, modern countries, are almost the same in a lot of different ways. So you might think it might be easy to adjust. It's just, you know, another economical power, modern city, but yeah, it's actually quite different. So for me, there were a lot of challenges, and as I was going through getting to know people in Australia and so on, what was interesting was the first place I sort of connected with were people within my university, and because I wasn't too familiar with where to go, who to get in touch with, who to meet, and so on. So obviously, the first place was the University Musalla, got to know people there and so on. And I stumbled across a brother who was actually not from the university, but he was visiting the university and was selling some books. And through getting to know this brother, we sort of became good friends and so on. And he had a bookstore that he just opened up, an Islamic bookstore. So from there, we just sort of got to know each other, became good friends, and just like what you're doing, Khalid, a really good friend here, like you're bringing people together. So, I mean, this friend of mine was also bringing people together. So his bookstore was sort of like a volunteer-based bookstore. So a lot of the people working there were actually volunteers, and he was trying to bring the community together, like the younger community. Um, and that's when I met my wife. Like she was also a volunteer for this bookstore, Islamic bookstore. And through us both volunteering together, we sort of got to know each other. And yeah, within about 6 months or so, we got married, alhamdulillah. So it was a pretty like unexpected thing for me, because here I'm in a different country altogether. 20 years I've lived in Singapore, all of a sudden another country with a completely different intention to get a degree, but all of a sudden I'm getting married. And I still remember we sort of, after about 6 months of getting to know each other, we decided let's get married. And it was the holidays of university, and when I went back to uni after the holidays finished, my friends at uni were like, "Hey, what'd you get up to during the holidays? Like, how was your holidays?" And I was like, "Hey, guess what? I got married." And they had this like shocked look in their face, like, "Oh, what? You got married? Oh gosh." Yeah. So it was a bit full on. It was a bit like quite heavy for them to think, "Oh, hey, you just went on holidays and came back, got married." But yeah, so for me it was quite a big turn in my life. Like not just a small turn, like massive. Like some people get time to plan their wedding probably 6 months in advance or 1 year in advance. For me, it was just like just a matter of weeks, and that's it. I got married. So it was a really interesting step of my life, but also very, I'll use the word confrontational. And the reason why I say it was confrontational for me is because I think, I think the last podcast or the last session me and Khalid did, we spoke a lot about, I don't know if did we speak about NS? Like, you
Yeah,
go to the army
yeah,
and you go to NS and your life turns upside down. You get shocked by doing different things that you never done before in your life. So this is like the second turning point of my life, where well, there's first this conversion, and then this well, conversion happened after I was in while I was in NS. So it was NS and then conversion, and then going to Australia, and then now getting married. So it was like a massive turning point for me. So it sort of forced me into a mindset of like, this is serious stuff. It's not just we're dating or we're meeting each other or something. It's you're gonna spend your whole life with each other. So it's like a whole new challenging. Yeah, there's no manual for it. And I got married in 2004. So you don't have social media in 2004. I think YouTube wasn't around back in 2004 yet. So you don't have too much to sort of flip through in terms of a guide, or understand in terms of what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after, or what can I do next. So it's kind of like you just get thrown into just understanding that you have to move forward. Like the next day is going to come and you're going to have to face the challenge, and the next year is going to come, you're going to face a challenge. So it was a pretty bold thing to embark upon, I think. Yeah, so that's basically what happened for me at that point in time. And look, even till now, like every day is still a challenge. And me and my wife, like we've got 4 kids now, and we look back and we sort of like, oh, like when you sort of look at where you were back then and where you are now, I think one of the most important reflections you have to make is to be thankful, because when you get the chance to reflect on your past, it makes you appreciate where you are right now. Because if you don't have anything to reflect back from the past, then like today is no different from yesterday. But when you get the chance to reflect, then you appreciate it. You're like, oh, alhamdulillah, this is where we were then, and this is where we are now, and some things change for the better, because sometimes it's bad and then it's good, and some things are meant to be the same all the way, which is also good, because not everything's meant to go like this or like that or like that. Some things being stable and consistent is good enough. It's something that you can hold on to and know, I'm moving forward just by being constant or stable, that sort of thing.
Yeah, mashallah. Interesting story. And I think another person who would be interesting to share also is Hafiz, because Brother Hafiz, he studied overseas many years also, right? He went to Scotland and then Germany, and he learned French, and he learned everything. I thought you also learned Russia, right?
Yes.
Yes, and Arabic. Laham. Okay. So Hafiz, in your whole experience in traveling to study, and then you finally got married, what was your definition then, before and after you're married? Like, what was your understanding of marriage then? Like, I know all of us, you cannot hide lah. I think in this panel of discussion, all of us has a broken relationship before, and or disappointment in relationship before. So for you yourself, when you got married and looking back at what you are now, and to what like Ashari was saying, looking back in Shukur and all that, how would you describe marriage to people who still not sure that marriage? Is there love before marriage, or is it after marriage, or what is it then? Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me to the show. Khalid, thank you for bringing me in.
Yeah,
So,
welcome.
if I have to compare my life before and after marriage, these are actually worlds apart. Especially when you live abroad and you are still single, right? So it's like you live in a society where anything goes. Actually, that means people are supposed to accept whatever that makes them happy, right? That means in a life like that, you do not have to be married. You can even choose to be, you call it a union over in Europe, right? So you can be of any kind of relationship. If you decide to live together, you are allowed to live together, right? So I was exposed to that kind of lifestyle, right? So it was very different from what, being brought up as a Muslim in Singapore and suddenly living abroad, then it meant that I could do anything I want. And I said anything, really anything I want, because I was away from family, was not tied to any relationship. So it was very easy, actually. I could do whatever I wanted. But Allah has bigger plans, right? Right? Allah knows what is best for me, right? So in short, nothing actually worked abroad for me. So I actually had to come back home, quite disappointed. Right? But when I came back home and continued to volunteer in Darul Arkam, that's when I met my wife, right? I've never met someone who was so steadfast in her faith towards Allah, never met someone so steadfast in her sunnah salah, never met someone so steadfast in her sunnah fast, right? Her Mondays, Thursdays fast. Never met someone who is so generous. I learned so much from her, actually. And not only that, when we got married, I learned something from my in-laws also, right? Because my in-laws were the type who would always perform salah in congregation as a family together. Right? Every Saturdays we meet at my mother-in-law's place when my mother-in-law's still around. Then we would actually perform Zuhur together, Asr together, Maghrib together, Isha together, right? And learning that, I actually brought those practices into my family, because my family are mainly women, right? And me being the youngest in my family, it was something that I didn't realize before. Then I realized that this is something that has not happened in my family for a long time, because my late father, who was a Qari, right? He used to win competitions in Malaysia. That was before I was born. Because when he passed away, I was only 12 years old. But Alhamdulillah, I khatam the Quran at age 11, right? Under his guidance. I'm one of the fortunate ones who, some other parents will send their children to go learn mengaji at someone's house, or go to a madrasah and learn these things because they can't teach their children. But I was taught by my own father. And so I did not realize what a blessing that was, until I became an adult, when people asked me to read Quran at ceremonies, people asked me to lead Salah, and because sometimes people will ask me, who's your sheikh? And my answer is no, I'm not tied to anybody. I'm not in any group. So I did not know the answer to that question until I got married. Then I realized that the reason why I'm able to lead all these things is because subconsciously, the subconscious mind is very powerful. What my father taught me, although he didn't say it explicitly, is that to be a man in the family, to be a head of the family, you must know how to do all these things, right? Because if the man doesn't do all this, the family is not going to function the way it's supposed to be, you know? Right? So I was just very fortunate. I mean, I did not know. This is something I really thank Allah, because I had a father who used to teach me this. And then when I got married, I'm just so fortunate that my in-laws actually taught me these things, right? And now I'm where I bring this practice into my family. Ever since I got married, whenever I'm with my family, I will just get everyone to come together and we'll do salah together, right? Something that didn't happen before, right? So it's in the Islamic way, right? In this Islamic way, so different from what I was exposed to, because I lived a life where I was exposed around people who could be whatever they wanted to be, right? And there was also a stark difference between my life in Scotland and in Germany, because in Scotland I was exposed to Indian Muslims, Pakistani Muslims, Bangladeshi Muslims, Arab Muslims, who were all English speakers. So language wasn't a barrier, and it was very easy to interact. I could always talk to them. They would ask me to read Quran at ceremonies. So they asked me to lead Jum'ah, you know, to become khatib. So I got this exposure in my 20s. I was very fortunate to do all that. But during my time in Germany is different, because I was with Turkish Muslims, right? So the communication or the chemistry wasn't there. See? Although we can communicate in German, and also I know what it's like when I hear converts telling me that, you know, the khutbah in Singapore are in Malay, right? And they don't understand the khutbah. I mean, luckily now with social media, you have these tools. But if you talk about 20 years ago, right, with the khutbah on Fridays, always in Malay, people who are non-Malay speakers can't understand, right? And I know how that feels, because that was my time in Germany. For 2 years, I didn't get anything. The khutbah was in Turkish the whole time. For 2 years, 2 full years, I've never received any religious education. Right? Because there was no YouTube. Okay, as I pointed out, right? 2001, 2003, there was no YouTube, right? So what material, Islamic materials do I have? I don't have anything, right? I didn't get to go to learn Islam somewhere, right? Something that I was able to in my time in Singapore, even in the UK, but not in Germany, right? And then the mosque community are Turkish people, so amongst themselves they speak Turkish. To the foreigner, this foreigner is only German. There's no English spoken, right? So you can have a conversation, but maybe perhaps not a meaningful conversation. Right? And I remember during my 2 years in Germany, not once anybody asked me to do azan. Right? Forget reading Quran all that. Not even, because they don't know who I am. They don't know that I used to be someone who do azan. Yeah. So no, I was not asked. So the exposure, or rather the exposure, was not towards this, was towards other things. Right? So I was very fortunate, like I said, in marriage, where but generally, again, I was amongst those also. When I had a wedding also back in 2006, it was still a grand wedding. It was, you know, it was something where we invited many people, right? I even did a live show singing and all that. But again, years later, I realized that's not what marriage is. You know, marriage is a lot more than that. Yeah. So I think that's my kind of introduction. Maybe Khalid, you want to ask further questions again?
Yes.
Ask other people.
No worries, inshallah. How about you, Z? As a woman, right? They say that if someone wants to get married to you, of course your husband now, alhamdulillah, Sharil, you need to agree to the proposal, right? Which I want to marry you. Okay, I agreed. Right. So what was the pinnacle point in that moment that you said, I accept you, and I felt that you are the one for me? Okay, would you like to share your experience then? And this is not a miracle thing, but this is a journey. You know, a journey where people, like Ashari was saying, that you suddenly go into a phase where you need to tawakal and you need to learn a lot, and there's no books actually that can cultivate your soul in terms of dealing with all these unexpected situation in marriage. So how about you? How would you like to share with us?
I think, like, for me, maybe a little bit of the background of whatever happened before I actually got married. I've already had this intention that I wanted to get married, right? But then after which it did not happen. So basically I was in this like broken sort of relationship. And then I got into this whole motion whereby, because back then I was very idealistic. You know, you always had this, I mean, maybe it's a woman thing, I'm not too sure. We're very idealistic in a sense that we want men to be a certain way, or like, because you're comfortable with a certain someone, and then you thought like, okay, maybe this person may be the one for you. But when that didn't happen, I think it kind of like shook me a little. Like it kind of shook me in a sense that like, oh, am I gonna be like not married my whole life, or like you're just tired of all this and everything. But then I think after that I kind of like re-look back into the intention of why I wanted to get married in the first place. So so then when I looked into it, I realized that it was really because I was having all the wrong intentions of wanting to get married, and I was being very idealistic and stuff like that. So when I got married to Sharil, right? So Sharil was just a friend of mine, which I knew 10 years ago, but we didn't really like
No mutual
interacted lah.
feeling lah. No mutual
No
feeling.
mutual feeling, and we didn't really interacted also. Like I knew him, like I knew of his existence, but we only got close like 2 years ago when we were seeking. Both of us were seeking the same thing. We were going for classes with UCB Khalid, and then we were going for zikir and all that. And I realized like we had this common goal, whereby both of us are seeking Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. In a sense, we had that common goal. So when one day he just out of the blue, like right, he just like sort of say like, hey, you know what? Do you want to just like get married to me? I was kind of like taken aback because I was just like, are you kidding me? Because he was, I'm sorry, Cheryl, if you're watching this and I'm exposing you, but
It's okay.
but like basically, he was at that point of time he was searching for a job. He was in a job shift, and he was talking to me, and he was asking me like, how much is it, will it take for him to save enough money to get married and stuff like that. And at that point of time I knew that he wasn't even seeing anyone, so I was just like, you want to get married to who? Then after that, yeah, so I was just like a bit like, okay, then. But during that point of time I was helping him with like his resume and helping him out lah. So then one day he just blurted out, he's just like, do you think you want to get married to me? And I'm just like, I've never ever considered that in my whole entire life. I was just like, no, I never even considered. Then she's like, maybe we should like consider each other. And then like both of us, right? We're just like, maybe we should consider. And then like both of us did the istihara for like a week. So I think that whole shift was the whole reason why we wanted to get married was because we really wanted to set that intention lah. Like because both of us were going on the same path, right? So we were each other's back support in some sense. We always like had conversations about the journey to Allah, and he had similar stories as well. Like his history was somewhat the same as mine, and we could connect through that past somewhat. And then I think through that we sort of understood each other. And I think what I saw in Sharil, like I didn't like fall in love with him or whatever, but what I saw in him was that sincerity of pushing through, of wanting to push through to kind of like what, just get married, and then then we do it for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and then we try to work it out together after that. I think that intention was something that we hold on to lah. I mean that was
That's
my
that is a huge risk, right? And
yeah,
because we
for
believe
sure.
people in our community, Singapore, you need to fall in love. So
Yeah.
like you tackle, they call it lah. You go out and all that. But you give us a interesting story. We know your story, but now you are sharing it. It's like amazing, and I think it's a wake up call for a lot of people where they always think like this has to befit my criteria or my intellect for
Mm,
someone to be with me, right? So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you like to share more, yeah, please.
Yeah, so like for me is that, yeah lah, firstly I think, especially I don't know about men lah, but women lah, we are very idealistic. And especially when for me, like during the time where my hijrah time, I've always thought like finding a man, he needs to be able to really properly guide me. He needs to be a certain idealistic views. I was that kind of person. So in my head, it was always like, okay, the person who was always there for me, who could guide me and stuff like that. But then I realized that like I was just being too idealistic, and the thing with Sharil is that he probably is not the kind who is, like how you see like people who can recite the Quran, who is like this and that and whatever. But that perseverance he have and that sincerity was something that I could learn from. Because I think for me, I am not really a person who kind of like go all out when I do something. So for Shahril, he really has that. Like when he helps, he really helps. When he has that certain qualities in him that I could learn from. And I think like um it's good to kind of have a spouse. For me personally, I feel good to have a spouse where you can see qualities in them that would benefit you or help you out in your journey to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. I think that is like really important in a sense, like someone who can call you out when you're doing a mistakes, or somebody who can kind of just like you can just talk to, or like he can just sort of mirror you in some ways. Yeah.
Thank you. See, it's interesting actually. You open up the whole reality of this discussion, mashallah. Talking about friends, right? I'm asking you. Talking about friends, and Zizi saying that you follow her way of doing things, like the criteria. This one, Shari, not to dismiss you, she said she will find someone else, right? I think all of us have that, correct? No? All of us have our, I'm not saying imagination, but expectation of spouse. Someone you think that it should be like this, it should be like that. But do you think like, we always hear people say like, oh, I can only treat you as a friend, but not more as a friend. But what's your view on that? Like, does marriage has to be in such manner? Like, it's like a defining moment. Then, like, oh, this fellow cannot. So, what would you describe then? Your own experience. You don't need to talk about me lah, but your own experience.
Okay. I think I agree with Zizi somewhat, like sometimes we have this criteria, like at least some things that we want in a guy lah. I know whether it happens for guys also. I remember last time before we got married, like I asked him a list of questions, and then basically Khalid didn't really answer lah. So so that didn't work out. But for me personally, like at that time, I do istihara, and I had a sign that it was good to go ahead. I wasn't really looking for marriage at that time, but because I read that it's a sunnah and all that, then I got the sign and it's a good sign, so I thought you should go ahead. But I didn't know him very well at that time.
Yeah. I think we only know each other like 6 months. And then like Ashari also lah, same mazhab. And then she just said, "Do you want to get married?" She proposed to me actually. She said, "You want to get married?" I was like Zizi, like, you sure? You know, like a thing, yeah.
Yeah. So to me, like I felt that istihara is very important because you can. I think we know that. I'm sure all of us know someone who has known someone for many years. Then after they got married, their marriage still doesn't work out. So there isn't a guarantee that if you know someone so well, that everything will work out. And there's also on the other side, there's people who don't know someone that well, but their marriage can last for years. So it's not really something that you should measure with, like, okay, do I know this person? And to be honest, like, you cannot know a person 100% as well before marriage, because you haven't lived with them, so you won't know 100%. So I felt that although we may have certain criteria, maybe the thing that I always tell them to think about is what is the one thing that um maybe if the person has a certain habit that you don't like, is it really something that you can accept or cannot accept? So that is something that you should look at lah, like what is the thing that you totally cannot accept in a person, and whether that person that you want to marry has that quality or not. So that is something that, because for me, right, I mean, I give example lah, like let's say you marry someone who likes to play games. For some people they don't mind, and then for others they totally cannot accept such men, And so those who cannot accept, and they keep, when they get married, right, they keep wanting to change the man. It's very hard because the man has been doing it for many years, and then you get yourself stressed, then it affects your marriage. But that's why it's important to look at, like, are you able to accept certain habits that they have, that in the future you don't try to change them, because you can change them, but it will take like a long time, and it can be sometimes frustrating. So in a marriage you have to look at these things.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your sharing. Interesting. Now we come to this special person who I know, Ubaidur Rahman. Ubai, you don't mind I share, right? So this Ubaidur Rahman, right? He has arranged marriage by his mother. Since he was young already. So before he got married, he always share with me lah. He said, "Sidi, very sad, I don't know what will happen to me after marriage." I said, "Relax lah, it's just marriage only what." But of course, some people, I can understand the risk involved. But now after he had married, inshallah, alhamdulillah, tabarakallah, that he have one kid. And he's very happy. You look at him, he's smiling all the way. He's happy now. So Sam, or we call him Sam lah, but Ubay, right? Uh, from what you went through before and now, right? After all the years of frustration, thinking that you cannot find someone who you want to find. Oh, this is the reality, right? So, do you think that you don't need love to get married? Well, what you need is maturity and sincerity, and then you work out after your marriage. Do you think that is one of the things that is important?
For me, it's more like I think love at the start or after marriage. We cannot say much about it because I don't have experience before how it was like to be in a relationship for so long and stuff and all that. So because nothing actually worked out, that's one. So alhamdulillah. So for me, I think I felt like everything actually led me to my wife. That's one. Because whenever there was a time when I was really interested in someone, then what happened was that when I prayed my istihara and stuff and all that, there was a very clear-cut dream that she's not the one for you, Then I was like, okay. And towards my marriage and stuff and all that, so I met my wife like after like 10 years. Then I saw her in the airport the first day, and then the next day was our ROM. Then alhamdulillah, we engaged. And then moving on, within 2 weeks later, then we got married. Then and then like I didn't know what to expect from her, or she didn't know what to expect from me. It's like nobody. I mean, both of us never knew about each other. As in, like we know each other's names, but then we don't know anything much about each other. But one thing I told her about was that I set my priorities right before. I told her what are the things which are very important to me. So because she doesn't know me well, so I just wanted to take this chance, the opportunity to let her know that the things that which are important to me, like for example my tariqah, then my friends, and then sometimes I have to volunteer, then I have to I do play games and stuff and all that, like I do say. So these are the things that you have to expect from me, kind of thing. And I'm a bit hot-tempered. Then I also spoke about my flaws. Then I said, I told her this thing that there is always gonna be flaws everywhere. So if I'm gonna see mine, if you're gonna see mine, and then if I'm gonna see yours, then I think we should actually confront each other and talk to each other about it, and we should let each other know that there are things that we have to actually correct, or maybe these are the things that I don't like, and then I need you to, maybe you don't have to fully let it go, but then you have to slowly improve on it, something like that. So so we had a discussion about gaming. So I do game a lot, though. So there was once that she do gets angry and then she just goes to sleep. Yeah. So these kind of things happen. So I do sometimes I really feel like quite disappointed with myself. Then I do go talk to her. But the one thing I do always is like I never let her sleep. We never let each other sleep like with something like hatred or anger in our heart. anger, more like anger, or we don't end with a quarrel. We always end with something nice lah. So we make sure we clear the air before the day ends. Yeah. So I felt like this is something which is very important. One reason is why, because I feel that whenever you have anger in your heart and then you go to sleep, the next day it'll just build up. So it becomes like, if you keep on bottling it up, then one day it'll just turn into hatred and it will just affect everything else. So that's one of the reason. And now, alhamdulillah, when I look at my wife, sometimes I always get reminded of this quote by Imam Shafi, whom he says that if something is meant for you, even if it's like 7 seas or 7 mountains away, it will reach you. And if it's something which is not meant for you, even if it's between your lips, it won't reach you. So whenever I see my wife, I always get reminded of this quote, because she was actually 7 seas away. That's one.
Mashallah. So, Sam, but after how many years already now you married to her?
Now, okay, I think about 4 years. If I'm
4
not
years,
wrong.
Fatima age, right? Yeah. So,
So my daughter is going to be 3 this year. Yeah. 4 years.
mashallah. So how was it then? The whole experience after marriage. You're talking about how you deal with your, I would say, ego, anger, and so on. But do you see itself as a hindrance, not knowing the person before your marriage?
For me, not knowing one person before marriage, I don't think it was a hindrance for me, because I was ready to be open to my to whatever already happened. So I so-called accepted. So until you accept something which is already given to you, you won't be able to open your heart. Yeah. So like you have taught me, and a lot of us have, I have seen in Solilahi events and stuff and all that. So I've learned about the thing called the ridha. So where you accept whatever Allah has given you and then you move forward with it. So in my marriage, I have done that. And one more thing is that when the day before I got married, I was fired. So I didn't have a job when I got married. So about like 4 to 5 months, I was doing Uber and stuff and all that. Then when my wife was pregnant with my daughter Fatima, and that's when I actually got a job. So and then the barakah leads on, alhamdulillah. So I was actually promoted in future. Yeah, I'm in a better place in my job now, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah.
So I think everything was very beautiful with the marriage and my daughter. Yep, Allah is the best of all planners, alhamdulillah.
Inshallah, this is what we call miracles that is hidden. Yeah. Ashari, getting back to you, you were listening to all of them. It was not like a first sight of love. It's more like everybody go through certain patches, rough patches, and then suddenly, boom, you meet someone like you, right? You met your wife while you were doing volunteer and all that. How would you describe actually this love and marriage thing to people who has not married and they are looking for certainty through your own experience? Now, remember you saying that actually it doesn't matter who you married to. What matters is if you are able to work together with that person, right? And what would you advise to, those people watching right now?
It's really interesting because when I'm listening to everyone's conversation about how they got married, I think everyone's got a different perception to some extent. Like some people might have something like one marriage to be a certain way or such and such, or you have an upbringing where you have Islamic knowledge, like alhamdulillah, a lot of Muslims, their parents teach them, this is how it is, like Hafiz, mashallah, you got a good upbringing through your parents and so on. For me, I find that, I converted to Islam in 1999. And then I had the year 2000 where I was hanging out with Khalid and we were going places. and then the year 2001, and then 2002, I was on a plane to Australia and not knowing what the rest of my life's going to be. And then 2004, bang, I got married, So it's sort of, there's no warning. There's no like, for some people, you might get brought up in, like, mashallah, Ubaid's story is amazing. Like, you have that sense of tawakkul and what's going to happen to some extent, and it's good to fulfill what like say, for example, your parents want for you and so on. But for a lot of people, there is no preparation. It's sort of, it will hit you. And even if you are prepared, even if you know you're going to get married because somebody says you have to get married by a certain age, nobody is going to be prepared for marriage until you actually get married, because that's the only way you live through it. Like I'm impressed. I'm amazed by, like, you, like what you said, when you got married, that's when it all starts. That's when you get to know your wife and you work on it. And that's a beautiful example, because me and my wife have the exact same what do you call it,
Experience.
motto, or no, about,
Experience
when you
or-
go, before you go to sleep, you make sure that both of you are not upset. So that sort of thing is something that you develop as you get married, and you sort of realize, what do you really want out of this marriage? You want, and everyone wants the same thing, happiness. Nobody wants something materialistic. You can have all the wealth out of your marriage, all the fame out of your marriage, all the, I don't mean to put any people down through this, but a lot of people even have Islamic expectations, like, we're gonna top the Quran competitions of the world, and one's a Hafiz, one's a Hafiza, one's a Alim, one's a Alima, one's a, Da'o, Da'i, and one's a, I don't know what the feminine version is. But anyway, so you're not gonna, you can have all of that even Islamically, but if you're not happy, if you're going to bed at night being upset with each other, then you got a lot of work to do. So I think that is the most important thing about approaching a marriage, that you want to, and pleasing Allah is as simple as pleasing your spouse, making sure they're happy, making sure they don't go to sleep upset with you, because at the end of the day, you don't want to upset anyone. That's the ultimate goal of your daily life. So I think I have this belief that anyone that is sincere, like I think Sister Zizi mentioned as well, like, your husband, you found sincerity as a foremost quality, that you thought it was something else, but then you found that sincerity was it. So I think that is the goal. Like, you have to, if you're a person that seeks sincerity in yourself first, and then you seek sincerity in, because you have to seek sincerity in yourself. If you can't seek sincerity in yourself, how are you going to seek sincerity in someone else? You can't. So you have to find sincerity within yourself, and then you'll find it within your spouse, because everyone's got good and bad. You're not gonna marry someone, she's the best wife or he's the best husband. They're gonna come with a package of badness as well, don't worry. So you're going to have to filter out that badness and look for that sincerity within him or her. And that's how your marriage is gonna work. And it's a daily thing. It'll start from the first day, and then, like, it'll keep going 20 years down the road. You'll still have to wake up and realize that you have to make sincerity your ultimate goal on a daily basis. And those that have that as the ultimate goal on a daily basis, alhamdulillah, they're happy married couples. Doesn't matter if it's kids, doesn't matter if you have a house, doesn't matter if you have a job. That's all of that is in Allah's hands. You can't control it. You can't do anything to control it. Most important is you have your sincerity, alhamdulillah. So yes,
MashaAllah.
to me, alhamdulillah, yeah. And I think even with people that sort of, it amazes me, because a lot of people want to get married, and it's not easy, because community and society has a lot of expectations from us. Like, not everyone's perfect. Not everyone has the ability to meet all these expectations. Like, I found myself when I came into Islam, that the first and foremost thing that I was struggling with was the Muslim community, in the sense that, how do I fit myself into the expectations of the Muslim community? And naturally, as a person that converts to Islam at a very young age, you sort of think to yourself, okay, so someday I am gonna want to get married, right? So I remember I was in Singapore, and I started to get surrounded with a lot of a lot of born Muslim friends, and bit by bit they were starting to get married one after the other. And I sort of stood back and I observed. I was like, okay, so what? There has to be some sort of an expectation from the Muslim community or the Malay community for somebody to get married. And when I saw the expectation, I was like, oh, no way. I will never be able to meet that expectation. I have no job. I didn't do well in school. I've got no money. My parents are not going to please you because they're not happy with me as it is for being Muslim. So, there's a list of things that I could never achieve, just by looking at my friends getting married and they have this, that, that. So I think what's important is Allah knows what you can do and what you can't do. And that's important for you to register within yourself. Don't get depressed, because I think a lot of kids nowadays, a lot of youngsters in this present time, they get really stressed and depressed and disappointed because we're going through economic recession. Look, COVID-19 has brought us to the back of everything. We can't buy a house, we can't buy a car, we can't do anything. So you start getting depressed, like I can't remember who it was. I think Ubaid was the same situation. He didn't have a job. Sister Zizi had the same situation. I had $10 in my pocket when I was doing my nikah, and we walked up to a random mosque. We actually didn't know anyone at the mosque. There was no families. Now, this might sound a bit scary, but there was no families. No families on my side, no families on my wife's side. So it was a very plain and simple vanilla wedding. And I still remember a couple of times when I show my friends, oh, that's my wedding album. And they're like, where's everyone? I'm like, oh, that's it. There's just like 5 of us there. So, that's the thing. All the expectations that you have, they're all going to be broken. Because I've seen a lot of people where they have met every single criteria, and it's a beautiful, lavish wedding. You got your, that little, I don't know, in Malay culture, you've got that little frame with the dollar bills on it, I don't know what you call it. But you got all that stuff. But, the marriage is not the one that Ubaid mentioned, the one that says, go to sleep being happy with your wife, go to sleep being happy with your husband. And that's the true success. It's sincerity, it's happiness.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Interesting analyzation. Right. Hafiz, you travel around the world and you were sharing with us about your experience meeting the Europeans who are the opposite of marriage, and interesting also you shared about how your wife and family and yours, you pray together and all that stuff, right? So Ashari was mentioning about his gung ho life. I think all of us had that in certain ways. Tawakal, gung ho lah, tawakal. You tawakal. Even for me and my wife also, we didn't have any. We didn't have prepared enough time to prepare for our nikah also. It's like, okay, nikah. But for you, right, Hafiz, I saw one of the comment at our social media, our Instagram, right? Some people, some women lah, it's all women saying lah that marriage is a gamble, and a lot of men are irresponsible. So for your take, when is it that men are actually ready? Ashari give the spiritual perspective, which is very important. But for yourself, because there are some bad apples also, we cannot deny. There are those who they married and then suddenly they just left their wife, left their children, and then worse, they went into another relationship. And they thought it's fine because I'm a man. I can do whatever I want. So what's your advice then when someone said that you can't trust anyone now with relationship, or marriage is a gamble now? What would your response be, having all this experience going through in your life?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting question. When are we ready? How do I trust that person? The reality is we don't know, right? And the thing is, when two people get together, right? Two people, no matter how similar they are still two different people, right? When you live in the same house, you have to accept one another. Right? And also the other thing is that you mentioned how after a certain time a person can just leave, the man will just want to leave. People evolve, right? And then more so, you look at what youngsters are facing right now with social media. youngsters will get influenced, and not influenced, they actually get affected very badly, because people can flaunt whatever they want on social media. Oh, I got a big job now. Oh, I got first class honors degree. Oh, I've got a new relationship, right? I've got just gone on holiday to Greece, right? So, and for all you know, these things may not even be true. It's just maybe like 10%, it's half truth, maybe 10% true. The other 90% are all sufferings. But we see all the good things on social media, thinking that this is what we're supposed to achieve, right? So it's very hard, and yeah, so that's why people can even leave relationships, because they feel that, oh, I didn't sign up for this. No, I thought my marriage is going to go this way. Now it's going the other way. So I'd rather go another way. Right? So it's hard, especially in the life now, where we're exposed to everything, things that we didn't have this kind of exposure 30 years ago. 20, 30 years ago, it was never like this. Right? You only know what you know. Right? You watch the news, you watch the TV, you can only know these things, you read. But now you may not be learned in all those things, but social media will teach you all the bad things as well. Right? So if there's no balance in life, that's why we are so lucky to have Allah. No matter how bad our perception is towards anything, right? We know that Allah is Al-Jabbar, right? He will cure, He will mend the hearts, right? Allah is Al-Furqan. He decides what is right or wrong, right? We will always think we are right, okay? You ask me right or wrong, I will say, yeah, I think it could be right, could be wrong, but of course, in my opinion, I'm right. But the reality is, right? When Allah shows us something, then we know He's in control of things. Right? So it's important that when two people get together, you have that same goal, that you both know, that you will both recognize that Allah knows everything. And the reason why you get together is because you want to bring each other closer to Allah. Right? And better still, if you have families, right, you not only bring each other, but also your families all closer to Allah.
Yeah,
But when
interesting.
that is absent, that's when it gets very tricky and very tedious.
Yeah, but Hafiz, like when you got married with your wife, right? Do you have like, when men is always like that lah. That's why I ask men. Men cerewet, they say. I don't know. Zizi was saying woman cerewet, but I think men also have certain cerewet. Cerewet in English is what? They call it
Fussy.
fussy. Yeah, fussy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right. So men also fussy. So when you got married to, let's say lah, I mean your wife really, let's say confirm you going to marry at that point of time. Yeah. What comes to your mind then? Do you still measure her by her looks, by her career, or was it like you said, after all these years what I went through, I felt this is love. I felt that this is something coming from Allah to me to be closer to Allah through her. What you think?
Yeah, well, fortunately for me, that was the way it was. I mean, I immediately after got married, I realized that Allah really showed me
MashaAllah.
something. Because my expectations were, of course, things like, you make better finances, you want this and that. But when you get into a marriage, you realize that marriage is a lot more than that. Those are just a small percentage of things. Yes, you want better job, you want better money, you want better this, better that. But there are more things beyond that. And when you marry each other, the important thing is that you are able to accept what. And marriage is not a competition. It's not about whether I'm better than you, you're better than me, right? The reality is, if you're better than her at something, then you take the responsibility to improve things based on your strengths. And then when she's better than you at that, then she will get to bring you up based on those strengths, right? So it's not a competition. It's meant to be it's meant to be complementary to each other.
MashaAllah, beautiful, coming from someone who has a vast experience traveling around the world. SubhanAllah. I'm talking to my missus now, right? Ashari Zizi was saying that, Ashari quoting Zizi in saying that happiness is where you reda with your wife and your wife reda with you, right? And then Hafiz also was mentioning about how is it that you as a husband and a wife leads each other to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. But certain expectation, Zizi also said like, sometimes you want to marry someone who is a Hafiz Quran, Hafiza, or someone that has a stature lah. Like, but you yourself think like, does it really matter whether we have this sort of person, as long as we are happy, like what Ashari was mentioning. But again, it goes back to the basic where what is happiness, right? How we define happiness in marriage. Because some people, they define happiness like, my husband and I, every year we go to holiday. My husband buy for me Versace. My husband buy for me maybe a Porsche or gas, gas. But for you, right? What would your sharing be for women out there? Because women play a major role in family also lah, right? They're like the pillar. The husband is the lead. I would say leader when they are the pillar. Both plays an important role. But what would you say to all the women out there? Like, how do you define happiness then? And how do you define sincerity then? Yeah.
I think I think everybody had similar experience. Like even for Khalid, when he got married to me, like he didn't. I think he just lost his job, so he didn't have much money. And I think there were some sisters who asked me regarding the man they want to marry. There was one who asked whether she should marry this guy because she's not sure about his financial status. Like he's not earning as much as she wanted him to earn to be earning. But I felt that the how much you earn is not the most important thing to guarantee a marriage.
Disclaimer.
So because I always felt like I told her that the most important thing is that the man is responsible. That means he may not have much money at that moment, but he showed that he's responsible, that he's serious about the marriage, he will work on it. Those are things that are very important. Even in the religious sense, like they may not be able to read Quran, but if they are working towards it and they are working on themselves, that's the most important thing. And I felt that the most important thing actually is to look at the character of the person. It's not just so easy like you look at how much they earn, or you look at how much they know about religion, but it's about the character, because the character actually uh defines everything lah in whatever you do, whether you're a responsible person or whether you are serious in the marriage, whether you have integrity, things like that. I felt those are the most important parts of when you are looking for someone. It's not necessarily like you look for certain things, like you want a hafiz or you want someone with a good career. So that was my advice for people. I felt that happiness is based on like what both of you are willing to work on together, because marriage isn't like a one way road. Like you expect something from the person, but then you are not also giving. So both spouses should be giving to each other. And I felt that I personally, like for both of us, right, our character is very different. You would say I'm uptight lah, then he is like very playful lah. So I realized that even though we have opposite character, it sort of complement each other. Like when it comes to certain work at Soilahi, then he needs someone to be more serious. But at times I'm too uptight, so he reminds me not to be, not too like okay focus. So these are things that we learn from each other as our marriage go along. And I think if you can see what your spouse um, has benefited you and how you have benefited them as well, then that's when you know that this marriage is really something that is for your own benefit lah. So you won't be seeing it like you cannot see only yourself contributing lah. That's the main thing.
Yeah, thank you, mashallah. Mm. Sam, why are you laughing? I coming to you. Sam, being a father now, right, after 4 years of marriage, does it change the way how we see it? Your love life with your wife, and how would you describe love actually in relationship? Because I think after marriage they say lah all halal, and and some people even say that I married because I want to make my relationship halal. Nothing wrong. I mean, it's all based on intention, right? But for you yourself now, as a father, uh, as a husband, when Fatima came to your, I saw that with my own eyes. When Fatima came to your life, it completely changed you, right? It completely like, okay, I'm no longer the old Ubay anymore, right? So how was it then to explain to people what is the reality of love in relationship? Because some people feel like once you have children, that's it. You are not going to progress as a couple in your marriage. Now it becomes like a burden because everything hinges on the children and education and everything. What would your experience like you like to share lah? Sorry, what would you like to share with us your experience? Yeah.
Okay, in just my humble opinion from my whatever I experienced. So it's like for me, when I think when Fatima was born, I think that was the most beautiful thing. Don't tell my wife, beautiful thing in my life. So I think because when she was born, I felt that I really appreciated my wife more. That's one, because I saw all the pain that she went through during the labor and stuff and all that. So then after she was born, like then there are a lot of things that she has to do for her, as in as a mother, the way she has to like care for her and stuff and all that, and also to her motherly symptoms of like what the baby wants and all that actually made me fall in love with her more. So it actually never moved me away from her, but made me closer to her. So, and I find that there is more, as more as I see that whatever she does for my daughter, I felt like I should do more itself. So I always try to, sometimes I feel that I'm not doing much for my family. So because I don't earn much, but then I feel that um, apart from just earning, I don't do much work for my family. That's what I feel all the time. So I feel like she's the one who is doing a lot at home. So I always try to give another extra 100% just for her, because I think that's part of love, lah. So that's what I see. And with Fatima along, I think the journey got even more beautiful because as parents, yeah, I think we really worked out. I don't know how to put it, but then it's just the thought of her like makes us smile all the time. So even though we have like disagreements here and there, and then she just comes along, and then we both just start smiling and stuff and all that. And then we love to see her grow, and her growth actually, like we start to wonder about the whole life, how it was how it was before Fatima, how it is now, and how much we have changed. And I feel that there is a lot of barakah in having a daughter. That's one. So I support women on this. Okay, so so that's very beautiful when you, because the Prophet ﷺ said that you when you have a daughter, there's a lot of blessing, and I really feel that, and I really see that in my life. So apart from my rizki, apart from my work, I see that in my family as well. So everyone is just so joyous about her. Yeah, that's all.
Mashallah. Thank you. I mean, that is sufficient. People need to hear that because I felt that, like what my brother Ashari was saying, like sometimes you have to do things your way and not expecting the society to give you their say. It's everything hinges on you. And I think we share a beautiful ways about how you get closer with your wife, getting more love with her, and that's important in marriage because marriage needs to grow. And coming to Zizi, like when you married Sharil, so this is like intense talk like that. No, it's not intense. Like when you married Sharil and you said that you don't have any expectation that much, except you learn from her his sincerity. That touched me a lot because I also know Sharil personally, a beautiful man of few words, and love to serve people. MashaAllah, Allah bless him. But the thing is, like a lot of people will always say, like, oh, if you cannot get into my heart, this is woman then I will not be able to marry you. It's like at the end it's like someone trying to impress you. Then you get into that relationship. But then you realize like all this type of trying to impress people to be in relationship end up in disappointment because they are not sincere, right? So end up you seeing someone who is sincere, really sincere. So what I'm trying to ask you is that how is it that people will be able to deal with things that they are not used to. Like what you share a bit just now, but what I want is like the whole process then from that time of marriage until where you are today, right? Uh, to deal with something that you are not used to, and then you become something that you love it because you know
Mm,
you see the person and you realize like this is what Allah wants from me. But it's always
mm,
difficult to say if the relationship went wrong, takkan Allah send me the wrong person, right? You get what I mean? So
yeah.
how is it that journey for you itself from yakin to sincerity to yakin itself? Yeah.
Mm. I think going back to what you said, right? I was kind of like that in a sense that I was like, um, I'm always comparing. Sorry again, Shari. I was always like previously like comparing him to people of my past. Like I can't marry him, he's like this and then, like he's not like how, yeah, again, my idealistic views of how men should be. But then I think after I did istihara and all that, right? I really asked Allah to open up my heart because at the end of the day, the changer of heart is the Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. He knows what's best for you. Like we will never know what's best for ourselves. So I think that moment of like doing istihara when he opened up for me to see to 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 be able to pick up things from Sharil that I see that is good for me. That's when you slowly kind of like put that trust in not the person but more to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, and then after that you put that trust in that person, like that okay, he has this quality. Allah puts him in your life because he knows it's good for you, that both of you will sort of like mirror each other and help each other out lah. So I mean, yeah lah. So previously, of course, I have that idealistic views lah, but then after a while, I
So
realized that yeah, you cannot compare people with like your past relationships, and you have to really just rely on Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to change your heart. Yeah, have
so
that
what
reliance.
so what I said in the previous session was right lah. When your mental is broken, you're able to see things clearly, correct?
Yes,
And you are
yes.
able to see life functioning as a human as it is, right?
Mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
mashallah.
like I think like a lot of people, like we tend to fall back on ourselves in a sense that we always think that we know what's best for ourselves, we know what we have to go through, we know who the exact person that we want in our life, but we truly wouldn't know when Allah break that mental barrier, right? And then you were like, oh no, really, like this is the person that I have to end up marrying. You kind of like, you cannot push it away because Allah has put it for you. You have to, if you really trust Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, you have to accept it. And it's that really that reliance on Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that you accept it, and then you put that trust in that person that he will, be sincere for you. I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my take.
mashallah. Thank you, Z. And
Yeah.
from that onwards, I mean, everything, a lot of you, many of you, lah, I would say, uh, the marriage hinges on tawakkal, lah, tawakkal.
Mm.
And I think almost all of us here, actually, our marriage story has tawakkal. Subhanallah. Right. So I'm going towards, Ubay already talked about fatherhood and how that fatherhood make him love his wife more. I'm going to talk to Hafiz for a while before I go to Ashari. Uh, Hafiz, every marriage have his expectation. And the expectation for everyone in marriage from society, like what Ashari said lah. The society ada satu macam they always have something for you. So if you don't live up to the expectation of society, how will you advise people not to be affected? For example, children. If you don't have children, then society said, hey, you married, then you don't have children, like not good lah, not nice lah, like bad luck lah, all come out, right? But you don't know that that's what Allah wants for you. And it's difficult to people to accept, like you said, like, well, Allah has not given us children, but you don't do anything, right? So, what would your definition be in terms of marriage? You married already, you nikah already for a few years already, you have your own house, you both of you have your own career. You may not have children, but sometimes people miss the point, like what you said, like marriage leads you to Allah. So how would you describe that that whole lot of experiencing that marriage is sacred lah. It's sacred lah. That means it leads to Allah, right? Yeah. English, yeah, no French, yeah.
Risk comes in many forms, right? Having money is risk. Not having money is also risk. Having children, risk. Not having children, also risk. Having this, not having that, they're all risk. And you see, Allah is in control of things. Whatever you have is what Allah has measured for us. Okay, that means, yeah, it's natural. We being creatures of need, we always need more. We always want more, right? But we have the faith that Allah has given us what He knows is best for us, right? Some things we want it so badly, we don't get it, we don't know why, but Allah knows why, right? So, and that's what istikhara is. All of us mentioned about istikhara. That's what istikhara is actually about. You work towards the best, you do your due diligence, you do everything that is needed, but in the end, you know that Allah is in control. That means good or bad, right? Our perception of good or bad is because that's what we perceive. But what is given to us is because Allah knows this is what is meant for us, right? So you can't change the society's views. Fine, I think you guys get the question, we get the question a lot, but it doesn't face us at all, right? Maybe we were a bit fortunate because we come from big families. I mean, I don't even think of myself to be a father because I'm already a grand uncle. people my age become uncles. I'm already a grand uncle.
Allah.
I'm an atuk in the family. I'm an elder statesman. I'm the youngest of 10 siblings, but I'm an atuk in the family. So the same goes for my wife's side, right? We are both grand uncles, grand aunts, right? So, and what we do outside of family also is what we do in Darul Arqam, right? I teach Solar. We both teach Solar classes. I've been teaching 15 years. She's been teaching 13 years. So we're not distracted by the material world that much because we are too busy trying to please Allah, at least from our perception, right? When we teach classes, it's not just about teaching classes. We become befrienders also. The students don't have anyone. They have questions, they come to us. Okay, we are only ARS at the lowest level. We're not tier 1, we're only tier 2. But for the students to come to us, it means a lot to us, right? For the students to invite us to their wedding, it means a lot to us. For the students to invite us to become when they ask me to become the witness at their conversion, right? And then also, we are both registrars also, right? So I'm a registrar, she's a registrar also. She's one of the first five females to become registrar appointed by MUIS. So we are able to do even more meaningful things over the last many years, right? So negative comments can come, and maybe I guess when we are old, you don't care anymore, right? You can say whatever you want. It's not going to face us at all.
Inshallah. Yeah, thank you, mashallah. Thanks for sharing. I think it gives some hope to some people. Ashari, coming back to you as a father now, 4 children, and everything evolved, right? Before you have children, and now you have children. What usually you look into? Because I felt that a lot of family or a lot of marriages crumble after they have children, because I felt that they sort of stop finding what is the reality of their marriage, because they thought like children is the ultimate goal, like having children is enough, right?
Yep.
Or you having 4 children and looking back as how you started with your wife and not knowing what is in it for you, what would you describe itself, that journey, and what would your advice be? Because a lot of people, they get entrapment to last. Once the last is over, the marriage is over. You get what I mean? So you yourself, what would you advise to them, and your experience itself that you can share with them? Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll start off with let's say you have to, some people say in a nutshell, like if you want to explain to someone, like somebody asks you that question, what is your advice for somebody that's getting married? In a nutshell, it's as simple as this. And I'm going to give an example because something me and my wife are going through right now is that we have a friend, a couple that are friends, really good friends of ours. But the interesting thing is that they are in their 70s and they have no children. And me and my wife happen to be in this scenario right now, and it has opened up everything in front, like everything about marriage has unfolded itself in front of us, just being with this couple. And what they're going through now is something that we have taken as the foundation of marriage, in the sense that so this couple, husband and wife, husband is in a situation where he has an illness. I don't know what it's called, but basically there's a nerve at the back of your head where at the back of your neck, where if this nerve is damaged, your sense of balance becomes like this or like that. So you can't stand. You need a walker, and your talking is affected as well. You can't talk properly. So they spent so many years of their life being together and getting married. And what me and my wife have seen from this couple is pure love. Because this couple, the husband that's affected by this illness, he is currently in an aged home. So in an aged home, they basically look after you and move you from one corner of the building to another. So somebody constantly pushing you with your wheelchair or your walker. And because of COVID-19, the interesting thing is the wife actually can't go to the aged home. So she lives in their apartment, but because he's in this condition, he has to stay in the aged home. And COVID-19 in Australia, there's rules where I think Singapore's the same, that if you're healthy, you still can't visit anyone in the aged home, because in Australia, particularly, the people that are getting affected by COVID-19 are the elderly. And if one person gets it in the aged home, I think there was one place in Sydney where there were 19 deaths or 19 cases. I can't remember. It was pretty bad, but it just spreads from one person to another in the aged home. So you can't just visit each other just like that. So she's been crying constantly, day in, day out, about wanting to see her husband. And he's in that frail state. So to me and my wife, we looked at ourselves and we said, this is what we hope to still be like when we're in our 70s. And I think every single person that wants to get married, if you can't see yourself with your wife at the age of 70, one of you having a condition that is really tough physically, and the other person sacrificing your life for your wife or your husband, then please don't. It's not going to happen. Don't do it. You need to make sure you can see yourself in that position. And it's easy for anyone to get married. And look, we've come across people that have the most beautiful, joyous marriages and so on, and it's amazing. And what people have to understand as well is that marriage is not something that happens the way you want it to. It comes in phases, in the sense that the first phase is always the infatuation phase. Whether you like it or not, you're always going to start with the infatuation phase. The little butterflies in your stomach and, oh, wow, he's good looking or she's good looking. It always starts with that. You can't deny it. It will start with that. And that is why there's wisdom in, looking at each other before you get married, because you have to have that connection somehow. But there's also a deeper connection which you then reach, I think, the later stages of your marriage. But if you're maybe 2 years down, some people take 2 years or 3 years to get to the next stage where they they don't feel the butterflies in the stomach anymore. And that's where, if you don't progress to the next level of your marriage, and you wake up and you go, oh, it's you again next to me, and you sort of, if you sort of don't progress to the next level, then you're going to feel that way. Oh, it's you again next to me. I didn't feel those butterflies that I felt 5 years ago today anymore, because you're not going to feel it. You're not going to feel the butterflies. It has to progress to the next level of maturity in your relationship, which nobody can actually define. It's between the two of you, but it has to take it to the next level. If you're still feeling the same when you first met in terms of that infatuation, then you need to question yourself about your marriage and how you need to move to the next level. And essentially, you don't know how many stages it's going to be, but it's going to end up where this couple at their 70s are going to be like. They're going to be at their 70s and they're going to be, you know, my husband or my wife needs me and I'm going to be there for him. You know, your body is completely gone. You're frail and you're holding on to your last couple of years left, but you're pushing on, you're moving forward. You still have that same conviction, that same commitment, that same love. So back to your question, Khalid, about the kids. So I think whether it's kids, whether it's a career, whether you know, some people get married and they go into a sort of a family business or something. You know, within a matter of weeks or months, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to work for my dad's shop or something. You know, that sort of thing. And then so there's different things. If it's not kids, it's a business. If it's not a business, then it's something else. There's always gonna be something, and people think that it has to be just kids. No, it's not just kids. It will be something or the other. So I think personally that's the challenge.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. Like, I think when I saw a lot of people divorce, always things that they could not compromise, or not say compromise, sorry, they will not be able to understand how to make things happen together. And sometimes we think when they had problem, they are not confronting their problems, and they will look for other things to solve their problem. You know what I mean? And that's also cause infidelity, because when you have problems with your spouse, when you confide in someone, you feel that someone is better than your spouse, but actually you just met your spouse. I mean, you just met that person, the person just talk to you, you know. It's a delusion, but a lot of people fall into it, right? So I'm coming back to my wife, Ainun. So you know, a lot of people, they say that they've been, you said it doesn't matter how long you know the person. And we married after 6 months of knowing each other also, right? Like Ashari also. Maybe also like Gigi also almost the same. And Hafiz also. I think Hafiz also almost the same there. Subhanallah. I didn't know that everybody has quite similar lah, you know, alhamdulillah. But I think at the end of it, it's like people holding on to it. And then Gigi also was saying like, I used to think about how I compare this, my coming to be to all my past. And at the same time, you when you are in an old relationship, like it is maybe 9 years, some people 9 years or so, right? Then you keep saying that this have to work, this got to work, because if it doesn't work, then people will say, why you doesn't make it happen? You know, it's like a romantic Hollywood movie where you want like George Clooney and this girl get together, and then they must be together. Otherwise, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't like feel good lah. You're not together, you know. But they don't see the repercussion of it. For example, like you are not going to be happy, and you are just forcing yourself to get into the marriage, and you are not understanding that actually within the long severity in that sort of relationship, actually your soul each other, like, you know, like burn, you know, you don't really reconcile properly. It's just for the sake of people that you're pushing yourself, right? So what would you say to people who have that thinking, like the longer you goes the better, or is it that you need to do more than just knowing the person, right?
This is before marriage or?
Before marriage, and yeah, before marriage.
Mm, I guess as I said just now, like you don't need to know a person that well before you get married. I think I mean what I mean is that it doesn't guarantee anything. I think as that person said, commented on our IG story, right? Like marriage is a gamble. I can understand where she's coming from, because when you enter a marriage, you won't be able to tell like, okay, 100% this marriage is going to work. There's no way you can get that guarantee. So in a way, you are going into the unknown. So there is a certain like, you need the tawakal lah to go into it, because you definitely cannot tell like, is it going to work or is it not going
but
to work.
but actually, what is it that you need to be like Zizi, you know, like coming out of it, like s- negating your past, and then you say like, this is not something that I hold on to my past, and I just I will marry this person because I felt that it's from Allah. uh, that's what I also meant also, yeah.
Okay, that's why like like I felt that istihara is very important, because even in the istihara doa, right, you mentioned that you do not know what is hidden, but Allah knows what is hidden. And that's an important thing, because in marriage, as I said just now, you do not know what will happen in the future. You do not know what your spouse is really like, and there's a lot of things that you don't have a guarantee. So it's important for me, like, you should do istihara to really ask Allah like what is good for you, instead of holding on to what you have been holding on to for many years. If you have a certain type of guy or girl that you like, but then if Allah present you with someone who is very different, like, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to reject straight away? Because for me, like, istihara is a very important thing. Is to get guidance on whether this is good for you. And also, like, a lot of people also misunderstand that istihara, when you do istihara, they expect like, okay, 100% the marriage will work. But we know that there are many people who do istihara, but maybe their marriage don't work. But we should believe that there is good in what they, even in if they end up in divorce, there is good in it, in the marriage. So this is where, like, you know, yeah, the certainty in what Allah has planned for us, that whatever happens is good for you. And I felt that that should be how we move forward in a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, in generalizing question, right, to you, what if you married someone and then you realize that, hey, this person is not who I'm looking for. This is person not what I want. You know, some marriage they end only like 3 months, 4 months. You know, may Allah protect us from that lah. But how would someone respond then to that? Like, you know, you suddenly feel this person is not who you think he or she is.
That's why marriage is also a responsibility lah. I mean, I have seen like some people coming to me like, okay, they just say like they don't feel like the character is compatible. But this is where, like, as I said, marriage is also a serious thing. It's not something that you know, you easily, like, okay, you get married and then after that you easily make the decision to divorce. And I'm sure it's a very difficult process if you want to divorce after marriage. And you have to reflect on, like, if you find that really, like, you cannot be together, then again it's best to istihara and see where it goes. Because the most important thing, actually, that's why we advise a lot of younger couples, right, before they get married, to think clearly, like, okay, what are the things that you have in common that is very important for you? For example, for us both, right, we are both into spirituality, and that's something that is a must for me lah. I cannot marry someone who is against something like that. And that will affect my marriage if I marry someone totally against like what I believe in. So before you enter is the most important period where you ask each other, like, what is the most important thing in your life, like the most important thing that if you don't have, then you cannot live without. And whether the other person accept what it is. So it's always important to make the decision before marriage, because if after marriage there's a lot of things that are involved, like even you may have children, things like that, and it's complicated. And I'm sure it's a difficult process to go through.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think a lot of people went through that also. I would like to continue, but it's already 1.5 hours and we didn't feel tired, inshallah. When you talk about love and marriage, everybody is pumped up, I would say. But I think we got to call it a day. But before I call it a day, I would like to ask you. So, right, Z, you know, you already share with us a lot of interesting advices. Your experiences, you know, in going through topsy-turvy relationship. What would your advice be for a lot of young people who they really want to know what is love? They really want to know what is the product of the love. You know, we all watch TV, play in emo band, play in punk Sufi band, or whatever band lah. You know, you write love song, you say you love this person so much, but the expected reality is something else, right? So what would your advice be for them? Because they're seeking love. And what is marriage? Would you say to them? What is marriage? Yeah, correct.
Yeah, like for me, I think my advice would just be, firstly, you gotta ask yourself, like your real intention of why you want to get married. Is it just because this guy makes you feel good? This guy makes you feel a certain way? This guy meets your checklist? You gotta ask yourself that, because at the end of the day, when you get married, those things don't matter because you're basically dealing with each other's ego, and whether or not you are willing to sort of um, be able to deal with the fact that he's gonna call out on you and you're gonna call out on him. I mean, sorry, he's gonna call out on you and you're gonna call out on him on like certain things that you're not happy about. So being like, you have to understand that marriage is not what we romanticize about, like what you see in the Hollywood movies and all that. So I think it comes back to the intention. So firstly, really to know exactly why you want to get married. And then from that intention itself, then you slowly work to build up. And then I think Brother Ashari gave a good point, to know whether when, when at the end of the day, when you get older, whether you will be able to take care of the other, or if anything were to happen to your spouse, will you be there for him? Will you be that 100%, go all out for him? Because at the end of the day, it's Allah has presented you, giving you this. Your spouse is for you to take care. And then he has to take care of you, you have to take care of him. And if your ultimate goal is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it makes the process a lot more, I wouldn't say easier, but it makes the whole process it makes more sense. If you want to struggle through that, because you know that it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it makes it a lot more comfortable, in a sense, like, that what you can fall back on. So I think my advice is just to really know your intention, don't be idealistic, and if it's meant for you, then you just take that leap of faith, and just go for it.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Z. Mashallah. Sam, Ubay. So now, coming to you, what would your advice be? I mean, not every arranged marriage will be also in a good state. I would say that also. That's why everybody has a different experience. And you, so far, we witnessed that you have a good experience in it. But what would your advice be when it comes to marriage after you went through with your wife uh, through arranged marriage? What would you say to them? What would you advise them if they're same thing lah? What Azizi, if they're seeking about love, relationship, yeah.
Okay, so one thing I would like to highlight is that if you must be willing to struggle, because you can't go into a marriage, or you can't go into anything thinking that you'll be happy forever. There will be ups and downs. You cannot go into with a mindset of that I'm going to succeed, but without any pain. I think that doesn't work in life. I think you have to reflect on everything that you have been like going through in life. So it will actually relate to your marriage. You won't be having anything. You won't be having fairy tales all the time, like what Zizi said and Brother Ashari also highlighted. So you won't be having like fairy tales all the time. There will be ups and downs. You must be ready to struggle in your marriage. You must be ready to accept the flaws of your spouse. That one is very important, and you must be ready to like confront yourself when it comes to a point where your wife come and tells you that you have this problem and you have to actually do something about it, or you have this gaming issue that you have to do something about it. And then if you can't tell yourself that, I really have, if you can't acknowledge that you have this problem, it's going to be very bad, because you will feel that you are right all the time and then she's wrong, and then you will try to do something, you will try to impose some things on her instead of working on yourself. So it always comes back to you all the time. It's in a marriage, it's not all about you. It's all about how you are, how it's all about your spouse. That's how I think like love works. Because in the end, you mustn't see yourself in your marriage. You must always see your spouse, or in a higher level, maybe to how you guys understand, it will be for God, because humans and all of us are just means towards God. So it's all a journey lah. But yeah, so my advice, I think most likely will be to ready to struggle. You must be able to accept your flaws. You must be able to work on yourself. Ready to do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, boy. Mashallah. Beautiful. From a handsome father. Like Ashari, I would like to go to you before your advice, right? There also be people who say like nobody likes me, nobody wants me, that's why I'm not married. And what would your advice be itself that's not the case, and it can be any time, any day that Allah fated you to get married, right? So what would your advice be for such people? Do they stop having hope to get married, or you know, yeah,
Um, I think the most important thing is to not look. I would say don't give up hope, but I'm actually gonna. I actually found a new perspective today in your session, and I think
Inshallah.
sister Ainun hit the nail on the head, in the sense that it's not about. Yes, everyone wants to get married, and it's half of your religion, and it's one of the most blessed things. But I think what Sister Ainun said was about when you do the istikhara, it's about putting your trust and your faith in Allah. It's about getting closer to Allah, and whether marriage works out or not. You can do istikhara, and then you can have a marriage, and it goes on for a while, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out, you get divorced. So then what? What? So everything's gone down the drain for nothing. Like, so it's not about the perspective of anything, but to rely, the tawakkul, the reliance, the submission. Like, I mean, that's what we're all Muslims for. We're here to submit. And there's people out there that are married, but they might be struggling so much in their relationship that they want to get out of the relationship, their marriage. They've got kids, they want to get out of it. It's a toxic relationship, and I've seen that here many times as well, that it might look like a beautiful Islamic couple with 5-6 kids and so on, but on the inside it's a toxic relationship. They're going through struggles, torture, so you don't know what someone is going through. But at the end of the day, the key to everything is pretty much your tawakkul, your reliance, and knowing that Allah is your goal. It's not the marriage that's your goal. The marriage is your journey to Allah, but the goal is Allah. So you have to keep reminding yourself that, because if you don't remind yourself of the goal, then you're going to be absorbed in the aspect of the thing that takes you to the goal. And somebody quoted once that worship Allah, don't worship Islam, because Islam will take you to Allah. But there's a lot of people that worship Islam, that they'll debate with someone until that person hits the ground. And that's not what Allah wants, because Allah wants you to take Him as your goal. That's it. So I think, yeah, for me, that sums it up.
Mashallah, thank you very much. So, Brother Hafiz, what your advice be, for people who still not sure about marriage and they're still in a relationship, but they are not sure whether they want to get married. They have been in for so long. What would you advise? I mean, we know you say istihara and all that, but through your experience in marriage itself, what would your advice be for them? Stop or what?
That's a very interesting question to ask, because it's not easy to answer, because it's true, when people are in a relationship for many years, then the question is to continue, to not continue. Go back to Allah. Allah has the answers. So we don't have the answers. Neither that person nor us, these guys in the tic-tac-toe people, don't have the answers, right? And one thing I did in the past, which I advise people not to do, is not to condemn oneself, right? I used to in my late 20s. I got my nikah on my 33rd birthday, But so in my late 20s, my early 30s, I was not ashamed to tell people that I'm never going to get married. I actually believe so. I actually had the conviction that I was never going to get married. But always think good about Allah, because Allah knows why something happens, right? So ask Allah, and ask Allah for good things. Don't ask Allah for bad things. So don't condemn oneself, right? Don't say negative things. Easy. Shaitan comes in to give us all that. Put that away. Ask Allah for good things. As we say in Malay, kalau minta baik, jadinya baik.
Okay, now to my wife, Ainun, right? What's your final say? And I would like to ask you, so with all what we sharing today, right? What will you say to people, like if they ask you, young people or even normal people, they ask you what is love? So what will you say, and what's your advice for all those people who wants to get married or who are divorced and then looking for a partner?
I think like what Brother Ashari said about love, right? The stages of love, the infatuation, and then you go to another phase. I think that's an important point, because I think even in many romantic comedies that we have in Hollywood, we see that they expect they expect the love to be there all the time, like it's a straight line, like it has to be that way all the time. But that's not the reality. Like even when you have children or you have something else in life, things change. But the most important thing is like how you still care deeply for each other. And it's not the kind of love that is like, you buy me flowers every day, or you bring me
You buy
to
durian.
or yeah, or you go for like holidays, romantic getaways. So these things change. But if we expect, and I'm saying this because especially the younger generation, right? There are some who actually like confide, like after a few years their marriage is no longer, like they can't go for holidays because they have children and things like that. And that's where we must learn that marriage is is a process. And if you have children, then that's a new phase of your marriage as well. Like you are given these responsibilities, and there is blessedness in that. I think people should not expect love to be the same all the time. And the most, the most important thing, as I said, is just that you really deeply care for each other. And that's why some people, right, into their marriage, when they feel like their husband is not giving their attention to them, and then they feel like, okay, maybe I want to seek attention from another guy. But that's not that that's not going to help you, because you move on to another person, but then the same thing is going to happen. Let's say you divorce and then you marry another guy, then the same thing is going to happen, because after a few years he may not love you the way he loved you at first. So it is sort of like an imagination in you that things are going to happen exactly the way that you expect it to be. And I think these things are also fed in our brain by like what we see in movies, things like that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sister Ainun. Alhamdulillah, we come to the end of this discussion. MashaAllah, near 2 hours. I can go on, reality show. Alhamdulillah. So I'd like to thank each one of you, Brother Ashari, Brother Hafiz, Brother Ubay, Sister Zizi, Siti Nazifa, and my wife, Ainun Harun, for participating in this panel discussion on marriage and love. We hope to invite you again soon, inshallah. Maybe other discussion, inshallah. But thank all of you. Thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom, your advices, because there are so many people who are watching this. They are able to relate, learn, and understand. So with this, I'd like to say good night. Thank you very much. May Allah bless all of you. May Allah preserve all your marriage. And for those who are getting married, may Allah make it smooth. And for those who are having difficulties in marriage, may Allah ease your marriage. Right? With this, I'd like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good night. Bye bye. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Just now was our first program after Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. I hope that all of you benefit. Inshallah, this Friday we're going to have another panel discussion, but different topic. And this time, inshallah, we're going to talk about Rizki with Ustaz Amin. But it's going to start at 9 p.m. on Sweet Ilahi Facebook. Inshallah, more details on our future event will be on our IG and Facebook. With this, remember us in your prayer. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace out. Good night.